That bag doesn't go up there. Not for you. The words are not whispered. They are not muttered under breath or passed off as a quiet correction. Brenda Kowalski says them the way someone says something they have said before and never once been challenged on loud flat, and certain with the particular confidence of a person who has never faced a consequence. The first-class cabin of Skybridge Airlines Flight 318 is still boarding. Gate 14, JFK Terminal 8. The amber overhead lights cast a warm glow over the wide leather seats. The polished tray tables, the small vases of white orchids clipped to the galley partition. It smells like warm leather and faintly of lavender. It is the kind of space that is supposed to feel like a reward. Brenda Kowalski stands at the entrance to that space like she owns it. She is 54 years old. Steel gray hair wound into a bun so tight it pulls the skin at her temples. Burgundy lipstick applied with precision, not warmth. Her Skybridge uniform, navy blue gold, piping the small winged logo above her left breast, is worn the way a general wears medals. Not decoratively, as evidence. She has been a senior purser for Skybridge Airlines for 26 years, and she carries every one of those years in the set of her jaw, and the way her chin lifts almost imperceptibly when certain passengers step through the cabin door. Her eyes do the scan in under 2 seconds. They always do. It is practiced. Automatic. The kind of assessment that happens before the mind gives it permission. She is looking at Simone Hargrove. Simone is 36. She is wearing a dark navy blazer over a white blouse, fitted black slacks, low block heels. Her natural hair is pulled back with a simple clip. She carries a structured leather portfolio tote over one shoulder and pulls a regulation-sized rolling carry-on behind her. Her jewelry is minimal small gold hoops, a thin watch. She walks with the quiet, unhurried confidence of someone who knows exactly where she is going and has earned the right to get there. She is also black, and Brenda has already decided something. Simone steps off the jet bridge and into the forward galley. She does not rush. She does not announce herself. She simply moves toward the first-class cabin, the way any passenger moves toward their seat with purpose, with ease, with the assumption that nothing will stop her. Brenda steps sideways. Not dramatically, not with a hand raised or a voice raised, just a shift of weight, a repositioning of her body in the narrow galley corridor, so that she is suddenly occupying the path between Simone and the cabin. Main cabin passengers board from the rear door, honey. Her voice is smooth, customer service smooth, the kind of smooth that has a blade underneath it. Simone stops. She has seen this before. Not this exact woman, not this exact galley, but this exact moment, the shift of the body, the assumption, the particular tone of honey that means the opposite of sweetness. She has seen it enough times that she does not flinch. She does not flush. She simply reaches into her tote, removes her phone, and holds up the boarding pass clearly. First class, seat 3A. Her voice is even, unhurried. Brenda looks at the boarding pass, then at Simone, then at the rolling carry-on. Something shifts behind her eyes, the original assumption, not abandoned, just redirected. She cannot challenge the boarding pass. So she challenges the bag. That will need to be checked. It meets the posted size requirements, Simone says. We have limited overhead space in the first-class cabin. Simone glances past Brenda into the cabin. She can see at least 4 empty overhead bins from where she stands. The cabin is less than a third full. Boarding has barely begun. The bins are nearly empty, she says, still calm. Brenda's chin lifts, just slightly. Company policy. Rolling carry-ons in this configuration are required to be gate-checked at the discretion of the senior purser. She pauses. That's me. May I see that policy in writing? The question lands cleanly. Not aggressively. Not as a challenge thrown like a punch, but as a reasonable request from someone who knows what reasonable looks like. Brenda does not produce anything in writing. She cannot because the policy Simone is describing does not exist. But she does not step aside either. She holds her position in the galley entrance with the patience of someone who has done this before and has always won. "Move the bag to gate check, or I can't let you proceed to your seat," she says. "My laptop is in that bag," Simone says, "and my medication, and the physical blueprints for a project I just spent 7 months building. They cannot go into the cargo hold." Brenda's expression does not change. Those items can be transferred to a personal item. The bag itself goes below. The bag stays with me. Silence. 3 seconds of it. In seat 1A, a silver-haired man in a plain navy crewneck sweater holds his Wall Street Journal at reading angle. He has not looked up. His reading glasses are perched precisely on the bridge of his nose. He appears to be interested in nothing except the markets page. He is, in fact, interested in everything. His name is Arthur Whitmore. He has been in this seat for 22 minutes, boarding early, as is his quiet habit. He has watched Brenda Kowalski conduct 17 boarding sequences in the past 3 years, and he has read the 7 formal complaints filed against her flight cabin in the past 18 months, and he was, in fact, reviewing her personnel file on his tablet on the flight down from Toronto this very morning. He has not made a decision yet about what he witnessed in those files. He is beginning to make one now. He turns a page of his newspaper. He does not look up. Brenda finally steps aside. But she does it the way someone steps aside when they have simply chosen a different strategy not yielding regrouping. "We'll see about the bag when the cabin fills up," she says. Her tone has shifted. It is cooler now, more deliberate. "Don't hold up other passengers." There are no other passengers behind Simone. She is the 3rd person on the plane. She walks past Brenda without another word. She moves down the aisle, counts the row markers 1, 2, 3, and stops at 3A. She lifts her carry-on with both hands and slides it into the overhead bin directly above her seat. The bin is completely empty. The bag fits with several inches to spare on either side. She closes the bin. She sits down. She places her tote under the seat in front of her. She folds her hands in her lap and lets out a breath so quiet it barely qualifies as a sound. From the galley, Brenda watches her. Her burgundy lips are pressed together. Her chin is still elevated. She has not finished. She has only just begun. What Brenda Kowalski does not know, what no one in this cabin knows except the silver-haired man in seat 1A, is that this moment has an expiration date on it. In 11 minutes, Brenda will make a phone call that she believes will end this in her favor. In 11 minutes, 2 Port Authority officers will board this aircraft. In 11 minutes, Simone Hargrove will have her hand on her seatbelt buckle, ready to surrender the seat she earned the bin she filled first, and the dignity she has been protecting since she stepped through that galley door. And in 11 minutes, Arthur Whitmore will fold his newspaper, put it on his tray table, stand up, and everything will change. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever been made to feel like you didn't belong in a space you earned? Because Simone Hargrove has carried that feeling her entire life. She has carried it in boardrooms and airports and hotel lobbies and client meetings where she was the only person who looked like her, and she has turned every single one of those moments into fuel. Today is different. Today, someone is in the room. Subscribe if you are staying until the reveal because you are not ready for who the man in seat 1A turns out to be, and you are not ready for what he does next. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about who Simone Hargrove really is, and why this specific seat on this specific flight matters more than Brenda Kowalski could possibly understand. Simone Hargrove grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in a 2-story row house on Guilford Avenue with a front porch that her father repainted every spring and a kitchen table where nobody left until they had finished both their dinner and their homework. Her mother, Claudette Hargrove, was the principal of a public middle school in East Baltimore for 22 years. Her father, Leonard, supervised a district of the city transit system for 30 years and never once called in sick. They were not wealthy. They were not connected. What they were was relentlessly, almost ferociously committed to the idea that their daughters would go further than they had not, because the world would make it easy, but because they would make their daughters ready. Simone was the second daughter. She was quieter than her older sister Renee, more internal, more precise. While Renee collected friends, the way other kids collected trading cards, Simone collected blueprints. She taped them to her bedroom wall, newspaper photographs of buildings under construction, sketches of bridges from library books, the architectural spreads in magazines her mother brought home from the school library. She was 9 years old the first time she told her parents she wanted to design buildings. Her father said, "Then you better learn math so well that nobody can argue with your numbers." Her mother said, "And learn to speak so clearly that nobody can pretend they didn't hear you." She did both. She graduated from Howard University with a degree in structural architecture. She was one of 4 black women in her graduating class. She remembers each of their faces. She still knows where all 3 of them are today. At 27, after 4 years at a mid-size firm in Philadelphia, where she learned everything she needed to learn and several things she needed to unlearn, she went back to Baltimore and opened Hargrove and Associates in a 1-desk studio apartment on Charles Street. The desk was a door she bought at a salvage yard and laid across 2 filing cabinets. The chair was borrowed from her mother's school. Her first contract was a load-bearing redesign for a community center in Cherry Hill, $11,000. She worked on it for 2 months and slept 4 hours a night. She delivered it on time, under budget, and structurally flawless. The project manager called her afterward and said, "We want you on the next one." There was always a next one after that. 9 years later, Hargrove and Associates operates out of a proper office in Baltimore's Mount Vernon neighborhood. 9 employees, Simone's name on the glass door, projects in 4 states. Last week, after 7 months of proposal revisions, presentation rehearsals, late nights, early mornings, and one meeting where she was the only person in the room not introduced by name before she spoke. After all of that, the city of Newark, New Jersey, selected Hargrove and Associates to design the new Municipal Arts and Cultural Center, a 14-acre sustainable campus, 80,000 residents served, a multi-million-dollar contract, the biggest her firm has ever landed. She flew to New York 3 days ago to finalize the contract in person. She sat across a conference table from the project director and 4 city commissioners and signed her name on the bottom line of 12 pages. She shook hands with everyone. She smiled in a photograph. She took a car to her hotel, sat on the edge of the bed, and cried for approximately 4 minutes. Not from relief, not from joy, but from the specific release of something that had been held very tightly for a very long time. Then she ordered room service, reviewed the first phase timeline, and went to sleep. This morning she is going home. Her carry-on contains her laptop loaded with 3 years of CAD files and project documentation, an external hard drive, physical blueprints rolled, protected, irreplaceable, her daily medication, a folder with the signed contracts, a change of clothes. There is no version of this bag going into cargo hold. There is no version of that where everything she has just built does not feel like it is being handed to chance. She knows this. She also knows, with the specific clarity of a woman who has sat across conference tables from people who underestimated her and won anyway, that the flight attendant in the galley made a decision about her in under 2 seconds before she spoke a word, before she showed anything, before she existed in that space as anything other than a visual. She knows exactly what that decision was based on. She is tired. She is also underneath the tiredness a kind of bedrock calm that has been built over 36 years of precisely this kind of moment. She did not get this far by losing control. She did not get this far by making herself small. She got here by being more precise, more prepared, and more composed than any room she walked into expected her to be. She is prepared to be all 3 of those things today. She puts one earbud in. She opens her project notes on her phone. Outside the window, a ground crew member in a fluorescent vest guides a cargo cart past the nose of the Boeing 767. The pale October sky over JFK is the color of old pewter. She exhales. She almost booked economy. She thought about it. The cost, the practicality, the voice in her head that still, after everything, asks whether she really needs the upgrade. Then she thought about the past 6 months, the 7 months before the contract, the pitch that almost didn't happen because one commissioner kept redirecting questions to her male colleague, the red-eye from Baltimore to Denver that she took 3 times in 1 month, the 18-hour day she worked the week before Christmas. She thought about all of that, and then she booked 3A. She deserves this seat. She has earned this seat, and she is going to sit in it. JFK. Terminal 8 at 7:40 in the morning is its own specific kind of chaos. A delayed connection to Chicago has backed up through the entire concourse, depositing irritable passengers and their oversized luggage into every available seat and standing space near the gate clusters. The overhead speakers cycle through boarding announcements in 3 languages. Someone's toddler has decided that this is an appropriate moment for a sustained operatic protest. The fluorescent lighting, the kind that makes everyone look slightly unwell, hums above it all with complete indifference. Simone moves through it without being touched by it. She has her tote over one shoulder and her carry-on rolling behind her at the specific angle that means she is not about to stop for anything. She knows Terminal 8. She has been through it more times than she can count. The layout, the coffee spot near Gate 9 that is actually good, the quieter seating cluster near the window banks at the far end of the concourse. She finds a seat at the window near Gate 14 and sits down. The Boeing 767 is already at the jetway ground crew working around it in the steady rhythm of pre-departure preparation. She watches it for a moment. There is something about aircraft on the ground, enormous patient held in place by nothing more than gravity and procedure that she has always found calming. She smooths the front of her blazer. She takes a breath. The hard part is behind her. 7 months of the hard part. All of it behind her. The gate agent steps up to the podium. Her name tag reads Jasmine Reyes. She is young, early 20s, dark hair, a smile that looks like it belongs on her face, rather than being placed there by a customer service manual. Skybridge Airlines is now welcoming our first-class passengers and platinum and gold status members to board Flight 318 to Los Angeles. Please have your boarding passes ready. Simone gathers her things. She joins the small, uncrowded priority lane. When she reaches Jasmine, the gate agent scans her boarding pass. The machine chimes the clean melodic chime that means everything is in order. Welcome back, Ms. Hargrove. Jasmine's smile is real. You're in 3A today. Safe travels and congratulations on your gold renewal this year. Thank you, Simone says. She means it more than Jasmine knows. She walks the jet bridge. The incline is slight, the metal walls carrying the low hum of ground equipment from outside. She exhales once more. This is the transition from the chaos of the terminal to the contained quiet of the aircraft, from the world that just spent 7 months demanding things from her to 5 hours where nothing is required except sitting still. She steps through the cabin door. The first-class cabin is softly lit, amber warm, the smell of leather and something faintly floral. Wide seats, polished surfaces, the small white orchids at the galley divider. 3 passengers already seated, a man in 1C with his eyes closed. A woman in 2B absorbed in a hardcover book, a man in 1A with a newspaper. She takes in the man in 1A without thinking much about it. Silver hair, reading glasses, plain navy sweater, Wall Street Journal. The kind of presence that registers as background unassuming, still somehow slightly separate from the normal noise of a boarding aircraft. She does not know his name yet. She notices Brenda Kowalski at the galley entrance the way you notice a change in air pressure before you have language for it, before you have named it, before you have confirmed it is real. Something in the way Brenda's expression reorganizes when Simone steps through the door. Not obvious, not theatrical, but there. Brenda steps into her path. The exchange is brief, the one described at the start. The one that ends with Brenda stepping aside and Simone walking to her seat. But brief does not mean inconsequential. Simone has cataloged every word, every tone shift, every micro-movement. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition built over 36 years of data. She reaches row 3. Overhead bin above 3A completely empty. She lifts her carry-on with both hands, slides it in, closes the bin. Sits down, places her tote under the seat in front of her, folds her hands. Rosa Delgado is in the rear galley doing the pre-departure check on the beverage cart. She is 28, 1 year into her first full-time flight crew position, still in the phase where she is learning which of her instincts to trust. She noticed Brenda's body language when Simone boarded. She noticed the block at the galley. She noticed the way Brenda's eyes tracked Simone all the way to row 3. She notices things. She has not yet decided what to do with the things she notices. She makes a note on her crew tablet, nothing official, just a personal marker, and continues with the beverage check. Marcus Webb boards 10 minutes into general boarding. He is in his mid-40s, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt with the collar open, carrying both an enormous overstuffed duffel bag and a cylindrical poster tube that extends a full foot above his shoulder. He is on a phone call. He is loud on the phone call. He finds seat 2A without looking up from the phone call and settles in, dropping the duffel at his feet, because it will not fit in the bin above him, without removing someone else's bag, which he does not attempt. He flags Rosa for Wi-Fi information while still on the phone. He does not notice Simone. He does not notice anything except his phone call and his own mild discomfort. Patricia Osei boards shortly after. Seat 3B right beside Simone. She is 58, wearing a charcoal blazer, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She has the unhurried, organized way of moving through a boarding process that belongs to people who travel frequently and efficiently. She stows her single, perfectly regulation-sized personal bag, sits down, and opens a novel. She notices Simone. She notices the way Simone is sitting straight still, hands folded, and she notices something in the quality of that stillness that is not relaxation. She opens her novel. She does not say anything yet, but she is paying attention. Noah Garrett takes seat 4C. He is 31, white, carrying a backpack and a small phone setup he stows carefully in the bin above him. He is a travel content creator with a mid-size following. He pulls out his phone, checks his recording app, and settles in. He has filmed 100 boarding sequences. Something about this one makes him keep his phone accessible. Brenda moves through the first-class cabin with pre-departure efficiency, checking bins, adjusting presentation, offering pre-departure water to the passengers who have boarded. When she reaches row 3, she sets a glass of water on Simone's tray table without speaking and moves on. She does not make eye contact, but she glances at the overhead bin above 3A. In 1A, Arthur Whitmore turns a page. The WSJ Markets section. The overseas indices. He is a man who reads slowly and retains everything. He is listening to everything happening behind him with the complete practiced attention of someone who learned long ago that the most important information in any room comes from what people do when they think they are not being observed. He has already sent one text this morning to his assistant in the corporate office, a routine check-in. He has not sent the second text yet. He is waiting to see if he needs to. 10 minutes after taking her seat, Simone has one earbud in and her phone open to the first phase timeline for the Newark project. The cabin is filling slowly the measured, unhurried pace of first-class boarding, where passengers arrive with the confidence of people who know their seat will still be there. Rosa moves through the cabin with pre-departure water and warm towels. She is efficient and warm, the kind of warmth that is genuine rather than trained. When she reaches row 3, she offers Simone a towel with a small, real smile. "Can I get you anything else before we push back?" "I'm fine, thank you," Simone says. She returns the smile. Rosa continues toward the front. As she passes the galley, she glances at Brenda, who is standing at the forward service station with her back to the cabin, doing something with the supply manifest. There is a quality to the stillness of Brenda's back that Rosa has learned to read in the past 14 months. It is not the stillness of someone at rest. It is the stillness of someone deciding. The confrontation begins without announcement. Brenda turns from the service station and walks with deliberate steps toward row 3. She does not walk the way she walks when she is offering water or answering questions. She walks with the specific posture of a woman approaching a problem she has already decided to solve. She stops at row 3. She does not address Patricia Osei in 3B. She does not acknowledge Noah Garrett in 4C. She looks at Simone. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to move your bag." Simone removes one earbud. She looks up. Her face gives nothing away. "My bag is above my assigned seat. I'm aware of where you put it." Brenda's voice is the customer service register, smooth, helpful on the surface, carrying something harder underneath. "We have a passenger who requires that bin space. I need you to relocate your bag or allow me to gate check it." Simone glances up the aisle. Marcus Webb is in 2A, his enormous duffel bag still on the floor beside his feet, the poster tube propped against his armrest. She looks back at Brenda. Is this about his bag? Mr. Webb has priority accommodations and is carrying fragile materials. His bag looks like it's twice the size limit. Mr. Webb is a Platinum Elite member. "My bag meets the size requirement. I boarded during my designated zone. The bin above my seat was empty when I boarded." Simone's voice does not rise. It does not take on an edge. It simply states facts with the same tone she uses to present load-bearing calculations to clients, clear, substantiated, and arguable. "I'm not moving it." Brenda shifts her weight slightly. In the 2 seconds of silence that follow, Patricia Osei, who has lowered her novel, watches. Brenda's expression do something subtle and revealing. The customer service surface thins. Something harder shows through. It is only for a second. But Patricia sees it clearly. "Mr. Webb has fragile materials," Brenda repeats. "The bin above your seat is the most viable storage option for his items. Then Mr. Webb's items can go in the bin on the other side of the aisle, or below his seat, or in the bins further back which are currently empty." Simone gestures calmly down the aisle. There are options. From 2A, Marcus Webb has become aware that he is the center of this conversation. He looks uncomfortable. He shifts in his seat. He looks at the enormous duffel at his feet, then at Brenda, then at Simone. "Hey, look, it's fine," he says. He holds up one hand, the phone call finally abandoned. "I'll figure something out. I can ask someone in the back." "Mr. Webb." Brenda raises her hand toward him, not dismissive but stopping. "This is a crew matter. I'll handle it, but I don't want to cause trouble." "Mr. Webb, please." He subsides. He looks at his phone. He is not going to push this. Brenda returns her attention to Simone. Her voice drops by approximately 1 register. Still controlled. Still inside the bounds of professional tone, but with something underneath it that is unmistakably personal. "Ma'am, when a senior crew member gives you an instruction, you follow it. That is not a suggestion. It is Federal Aviation Protocol." She pauses. "I am asking you one more time to move your bag." "And I'm telling you one more time," Simone says, "that my bag is in my allotted overhead space. It meets the size requirements, and I boarded first. I'm not moving it." Brenda looks at her for a long moment. Noah Garrett in 4C has his phone in his hand. He has not raised it yet, but his recording app is open. Patricia Osei has put her novel face down on her tray table. In 1A, Arthur Whitmore's newspaper has not moved, but his eyes have shifted from the text on the page to the middle distance, the quality of listening without showing that you are listening. Brenda takes 1 step closer to row 3, close enough that Simone would have to lean back slightly to maintain distance. She does not lean back. "I find it interesting," Brenda says, and her voice is quiet now just for Simone, just between them, that you want to make this into something it isn't. "What is it then?" "A simple bag accommodation. Routine. Every other passenger I've asked today has been happy to cooperate. I'm not refusing to cooperate. I'm refusing to give up space I'm entitled to for a bag that doesn't belong in it." Simone looks at her steadily. "Those are different things." Brenda straightens. Her chin goes up. Just slightly. The tell. "We'll see how far that gets you," she says. Her voice is back to its professional register. Smooth, final. She turns and walks toward the front galley. Her steps are measured. Her posture is perfect. Marcus Webb watches her go. Then he looks at Simone. Then he looks at his duffel bag. His jaw works for a moment. "I'm sorry," he says quietly. "I didn't ask her to do that." "I know," Simone says. She looks back at her phone. She does not say anything else. Marcus picks up his enormous duffel bag. He picks up the poster tube. He stands. "I'll find a spot in the back," he says to no one in particular. He moves down the aisle toward the economy section. Brenda has not followed him. Brenda has not offered to help him. The problem she claimed needed solving has solved itself in 30 seconds without anyone moving Simone's bag, which is to say, the problem was never actually about the bag. Patricia Osei watches Marcus disappear through the curtain. Then she looks at Simone. Simone is looking at her phone. Her expression is neutral. Her hands are steady. But Patricia Osei has sat on enough boards and navigated enough rooms to recognize composure that is being maintained rather than simply felt. "You handled that perfectly," Patricia says quietly. Simone doesn't look up, but after a moment, she blinks once slowly. "That is all, but it is enough." At the front galley, Brenda is standing at the service counter. Her hands are flat on the surface. Her breathing is controlled. She is not finished. She has simply moved to the next available instrument. 3 minutes pass. The cabin continues to fill. Simone reviews the first phase timeline on her phone. A woman in 4A, late boarding, slightly breathless, stows her bag and drops into her seat with the exhale of someone who made the gate with nothing to spare. Brenda walks back down the aisle. This time she does not slow down as she approaches row 3. She comes with purpose, and she goes directly to the overhead bin above seat 3A. She reaches up and places her hand on the bin door. "I'll be moving this for you," she says. Simone is on her feet before Brenda's hand can apply pressure to the release mechanism. One motion, not sudden, not aggressive, just immediate. She stands and places her palm flat against the bin door. "Do not open that bin." Her voice is the same volume as every other thing she has said today, but the cabin registers it differently. The quality of those 5 words, the absolute lack of qualification in them, the complete absence of apology or softening lands in the first-class cabin, like a stone dropping into still water. The ripples go outward. Patricia Osei closes her novel. Noah Garrett raises his phone. He does not say anything. He is simply recording. The man in 1B, a passenger who has been asleep since boarding, opens his eyes. Brenda keeps her hand on the bin door. She and Simone are both touching it now. Simone's palm flat on the surface. Brenda's fingers on the release mechanism. An inch between them. "Ma'am." Brenda's voice rises in volume, consciously projecting now. Not for Simone, for the cabin. "You are physically interfering with a senior crew member performing her duties. That is a federal offense." "I am placing my hand on the bin above my assigned seat," Simone says. Same volume as before. The contrast between their registers is doing its own work on every person listening. "My bag is in this bin. You do not have authorization to remove it without my consent. I have full authority, on safety grounds," which this is not. Simone looks at her steadily. "If you have a documented safety reason that my regulation-sized bag in my assigned overhead space constitutes a hazard, I'd like to hear it." Patricia Osei speaks from 3B. Her voice is measured, not loud. She placed her hand on a bin above her own seat. "That is not interference with crew duties." Brenda does not look at Patricia. She keeps her eyes on Simone. "You have 3 seconds to remove your hand, or I am calling security." "Call them," Simone says. She does not move her hand. "I'll wait." 3 seconds. Brenda cannot open the bin. not without physically moving Simone's arm, and she knows with whatever part of her brain is still calculating outcomes that physically moving a passenger's arm on a flight she has been told to board correctly is a line she cannot cross without triggering consequences she is not ready to face. She drops her hand from the bin. The moment she does, something shifts in the space between them. Brenda has just lost a round. She knows it. The cabin knows it. And Simone knows it, which is why she steps back from the bin without triumph, without any expression at all, and sits back down in her seat. Brenda leans in. Close. Her voice drops to just above a whisper, but the cabin has gone quiet enough that Patricia Osi from 3B hears every word. People like you don't understand how this works. Her voice is low and even. You get a nice seat, and you think that means something. Move the bag, or I promise you will regret sitting down today. The words are not shouted. That is almost worse. 3 seconds of silence. Then Simone reaches into her tote. She takes out her phone, her personal phone, not the one with the boarding pass. She opens the voice memo application. She sets the phone face up on her tray table, clearly visible to Brenda, and presses the record button. She does not rush any of these movements. She does not look at Brenda while she does them. She performs each step with the precise, unhurried care of someone who builds structures that are meant to outlast every storm they will face. Then she looks up. Brenda Kowalski. She reads the name tag. Her voice is clear, carrying to the rows behind her without strain. Flight 318, Skybridge Airlines, Gate 14, JFK. I want to document this interaction for my own safety and protection. She pauses for just a beat. My bag is in the overhead bin above seat 3A. It meets your posted size requirements. I boarded during my designated zone. I have not raised my voice, left my seat, or made physical contact with anyone. I placed my hand on the bin door when you attempted to open it without my consent. Can you confirm why you are requesting my bag be moved? Brenda stares at the phone. The recording light is on. Small red steady. Put that away. Her voice has changed. The customer service register is gone, replaced by something that is trying to be command but sounds to every ear in the cabin more like alarm. You are violating my privacy. We're in a public space, Simone says. I'm documenting my own interaction. That is a company policy violation. It is not. The two words sit in the air between them. Noah Garrett from 4C speaks for the first time. His voice is calm, conversational, as if he is noting the weather. I'm also recording for what it's worth. And I haven't seen anything that looks like a policy violation on her end. Brenda turns her head toward 4C. She sees the phone. She sees the recording indicator on his screen. She looks back toward the front of the cabin, and she sees, because the cabin has gone completely quiet, and heads have appeared above seat backs like faces rising above water, that she is being observed from every direction. She has lost the audience. And Brenda Kowalski, who has operated in first-class cabins for 26 years, with the certainty that her word is the final word, does not know how to operate without the audience. That's it. Her voice cracks slightly on the first word. She steadies it immediately, but the crack has been heard. You're off this flight. I don't care who you think you are. You are creating a hostile environment. I feel completely unsafe. She straightens her chin, elevating to its maximum height. I'm calling the captain. She turns and walks to the front galley with rigid, deliberate steps. Her hands are not visible from the cabin, but if they were, anyone watching would see that they are shaking. Rosa Delgado is at the forward galley station. She sees Brenda coming. She sees Brenda's face. She has seen Brenda deal with difficult passengers before. This is not the face Brenda makes in those situations. This is a different face, tighter, more personal. Rosa looks back down the aisle toward 3A. Simone is sitting straight in her seat, hands folded, recording phone on the tray table. She looks exactly like what she is, a composed, professional woman sitting quietly in a seat she paid for. Rosa looks at Brenda picking up the flight deck intercom. She looks at her crew tablet. She takes out her personal phone, the one she is not supposed to use during boarding, and opens her messages. She has the number for the JFK Ground Services supervisor because she once had to report a gate-level issue during her 3rd week on the job and was told to save the contact. She has never used it since. She is considering using it now. On the tray table in seat 3, the recording light continues its small, steady pulse. Red, unwavering. In seat 4, C. Noah Garrett watches the front galley with his phone angled and steady. He has been recording for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. He has enough. In seat 3B, Patricia Osei picks up her novel. She does not open it. She holds it in both hands and waits. In seat 1, Arthur Whitmore reaches into the breast pocket of his sweater and removes his phone. Plain device, no case. He types something very brief. 8 words, perhaps fewer. He reads it once, then sends it. He puts the phone back in his pocket. He picks up his newspaper. He does not appear to have done anything of significance. He appears to be a silver-haired man in a plain sweater reading the Wall Street Journal on a delayed flight. He is the founder and majority owner of Skybridge Airlines. He has been one for 31 years. He has just sent a text to Greg Salinas 5P of JFK Hub Operations. The text says Jet Bridge Gate 14. Come now. Greg Salinas, 2 terminals away, reads the text and is on his feet before he finishes the second word. The front galley is separated from the first-class cabin by a partition and a half-pulled curtain. The passengers in the cabin cannot see Brenda, but they can feel the shift of atmosphere, the slight change in pressure that comes when something irreversible has been set in motion. Simone takes out her personal phone and types a text to her business partner, Diane Foster, back in Baltimore. Situation on plane. I'm fine. Documenting. The response comes back in under a minute. Do not give them a single inch. She puts the phone face down on her tray. She leaves the recording phone where it is screen-up light still pulsing. Noah Garrett lowers his own phone slightly and addresses the cabin not loudly in the way someone speaks when they are narrating something for a record rather than making a speech. I want to be clear about what I've documented in the past 5 minutes. The flight attendant approached this passenger's overhead bin, attempted to open it without consent, was told not to, and then told her. And I'm quoting directly from my audio people like you don't understand how this works. Following that, when the passenger began recording, the flight attendant declared her a hostile environment and said she was calling the captain. He pauses. That's what happened? I have it. A passenger in row 5, a woman who has not spoken until now, says, not loudly, she didn't do anything wrong. A man in row 2 nods once sharply. Patricia Osei turns so she is partially facing Simone. She speaks at a regular volume, not performing, just stating. You handled that with more patience than most people could manage. Don't move from this seat. Simone does not respond with words. She looks at Patricia for a moment and blinks once, slowly. The acknowledgement of someone who cannot afford to receive sympathy right now without it costing her composure. Patricia understands this. She faces forward and does not press. Marcus Webb, who has returned from the economy section, his enormous duffel now presumably stowed somewhere in the back, takes his seat in 2A. He settles in. He does not make eye contact with Simone. But he does look at the floor for a long moment, and the quality of that look is not comfortable. Rosa Delgado moves up the aisle with the pre-departure safety materials. She stops at row 3. She makes a small routine adjustment to the overhead bin directly across the aisle from 3A, checking the latch, tapping it twice. She does not look at Simone. She speaks without moving her eyes from the bin. Your booking is confirmed in our system. Gold status verified, no flags. I checked it when you boarded. A pause. I just wanted you to know. She moves on before Simone can respond. Back toward the rear galley, tablet in hand, expression professionally neutral. Simone watches her go. Then she looks forward, toward seat 1A. The silver-haired man has not turned around. He is still reading his newspaper, or he appears to be reading. She can see the back of his head, the line of his shoulders in the plain sweater, the stillness of someone who is either completely uninvolved or completely attentive. She cannot tell which. She looks away. The intercom crackles. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Farrell from the flight deck. We're holding at the gate briefly to address a minor situation on board. We appreciate your patience and expect to have this resolved shortly." In first class, no one murmurs. They are all very still. Simone keeps her eyes on the window, the tarmac, the pale October sky. She keeps her hands folded in her lap. She is holding something very carefully inside her, the way you hold a glass that is filled past the rim, not moving, barely breathing, focused entirely on not letting anything spill. She thinks about Diane's text, not a single inch. She thinks about the 7 people at Hargrove and Associates who started this week not knowing whether their boss was going to come home with the Newark contract or come home with another near miss. She thinks about Deja, her project coordinator, who took a video call from the hospital 3 days after having her baby because she wanted to know how the pitch went. She thinks about Marcus, her junior architect, who deferred a higher-paying offer at a larger firm because Simone told him, "Stay. This is the one that's going to matter." She thinks about the Newark contract, signed, sealed, sitting in her carry-on, in the overhead bin that she is not going to yield. She exhales once carefully and straightens her spine by another half-inch. In seat 1. A Arthur Whitmore folds the markets section back and opens the opinion pages. He reads one paragraph. He does not retain it. His attention is entirely on the sound of footsteps on the jet bridge, the sound he has been waiting for since he sent the text 4 minutes ago. He hears them. "Coming. Hold on. Before the officers step through that cabin door, I need to stop here for a second. Because if you are watching this right now and you are thinking about the last time someone looked at you and made a decision about who you were before you had said a word, before you had done anything except exist in a space they had decided wasn't for you, I want you to put that in the comments. Because Simone Hargrove is about to face the worst moment of this entire morning. The worst moment of a morning that has already been very bad. 2 Port Authority officers are about to board this plane, and Brenda Kowalski has told them a story about Simone that is going to make them walk down that aisle with their minds already made up. But something else is also about to happen. The man in seat 1A has put down his newspaper. If you are still here, if this story has you holding your phone a little tighter right now, hit subscribe. Because what happens in the next 4 minutes is something I promise you have never seen play out on an airplane. And when you find out who Arthur Whitmore really is, what he owns, what he witnessed, and what he does next, you are not going to believe it. Don't go anywhere. Brenda Kowalski's hands are flat on the forward galley counter. Her breathing is measured 4 counts and 4 counts out. She has done this before. Not this exactly, but the shape of it. She knows which tools work, and she knows how to use them. She is not thinking about whether she is right. She stopped thinking about that approximately 10 minutes ago. Now she is thinking about outcomes. She picks up the flight deck intercom. "Captain Farrell." Her voice is the voice she uses for flight deck communication, steady formal stripped of everything personal. "I have a non-compliant passenger in first class. She has refused 3 direct crew instructions. She is verbally combative and appears emotionally agitated. I have concerns about her stability and potential intoxication." A pause precisely calculated. "I'm requesting Port Authority assistance." There is a brief silence on the other end. "Copy that." Captain Douglas Farrell's voice is professional clipped. He is a 52-year-old career aviator who has flown for Skybridge for 19 years. He operates on the principle that when a senior crew member calls the flight deck, the crew member is the first available expert. Locking flight deck. "I'll authorize Port Authority contact." "Thank you, Captain." She puts down the intercom. She goes to the small mirror near the supply cabinet and checks her lipstick. She is composed. She looks exactly like she is supposed to look. She straightens the wings on her lapel and goes back to the service station. She has said the words emotionally agitated. She has said possible intoxication. These words will travel ahead of the officers like a shadow cast before the sun arrives. They will shape what the officers see when they look at Simone. They are not true. Brenda knows they are not true. She has deployed them because they are effective. What Brenda does not know is that Rosa Delgado, standing at the rear galley entry when Brenda made the intercom call, heard every word. Rosa heard emotionally agitated. She heard possible intoxication. She looked down the aisle toward 3A, where Simone Hargrove sat with folded hands a straight back and a recording phone on her tray table, looking exactly like what she is, a composed professional woman sitting quietly in a seat she paid for. Rosa looked at her crew tablet. She looked at the front galley. She took out her personal phone. She pulled up the number for the JFK Ground Services supervisor and typed, "Need eyes on first class on 318 at gate 14 urgently. Crew request to Port Authority may be inaccurate. Passenger in 3A has followed all procedures and done nothing wrong. Please send someone." She hesitated for 4 seconds. Then she sent it. She put her phone back in her pocket. Her hands were not entirely steady, but they were steadier than she expected them to be. In the forward galley, Brenda has no idea that this message has been sent. On the jet bridge footsteps. 2 sets, heavy with the particular rhythm of people who walk with authority as a professional tool. Officer Tate is the first through the cabin door. He is in his early 40s, broad-shouldered, with the practiced stillness of someone accustomed to walking into situations where the first 30 seconds matter. His expression is neutral, but alert. Officer Rivera follows him. He is younger, early 30s, dark hair, quieter in his manner. He does not lead with the body language that Tate does. He scans the room rather than entering it. He notes the overhead lighting, the passengers, the direction of eyes, the quality of the silence. The quality of the silence, Rivera has learned, tells you more than almost anything else. Brenda intercepts them in the galley before they can see the cabin. She speaks rapidly, keeping her voice low, her hand pressed briefly to her chest. She points down the aisle. The passengers in first class cannot hear her words clearly, but they can see the point of her finger. And they can see that it is aimed at row 3. She's been refusing crew instructions since boarding. She physically blocked me from accessing the overhead compartment. She escalated verbally and then began recording me without consent. I genuinely feel unsafe. Officer Tate nods. He adjusts his radio. He begins walking down the aisle. Officer Rivera follows him. As he enters the main cabin, his eyes move across the rows. He sees the passengers watching. He sees Noah Garrett's phone angled. He sees Patricia Osei sitting forward slightly in her seat. He sees Simone in 3A hands, folded spine, straight eyes on the window. He looks back at Brenda, still at the galley entrance. He does not say anything, but something in the calculation behind his eyes shifts subtly in a direction that Brenda would not welcome if she could see it. Tate stops beside row 3. He takes his stance wide, authority establishing the stance that says this conversation has one available outcome. "Ma'am." Simone turns from the window. She looks up at him. "I need you to collect your belongings, retrieve your bag from the overhead bin, and step off this aircraft with me." As Officer Tate's shadow falls across her row, Simone Hargrove does not look away from him, but she is somewhere else for a moment. Not absent, not dissociated, simply standing for a fraction of a second in a different room from a different year, because this feeling, this exact texture of being looked at the way she is being looked at right now is not new. It is, in fact, one of the oldest feelings she owns. She was 14 years old. Baltimore, a Saturday in November. She had saved 3 months of birthday money, $47, in a blue ceramic bank shaped like an owl that sat on her bookshelf. She had been saving it for one specific thing, a professional drafting compass set she had seen in an architecture magazine that her school librarian had let her borrow and then quietly given her. The compass set was sold at a department store downtown. She had looked it up, confirmed the price, planned the trip. Her mother dropped her off at the entrance and went to park the car. Simone found the school supplies section. She found the compass set, a flat metal case with 8 instruments, rubber-tipped, precision-calibrated, more beautiful than anything she had held. She held it for a moment. Then she tucked it under her arm and went looking for her mother. The security guard found her first. He was a heavy-set man in a gray uniform. He approached from her left and said, "Can I help you find something, young lady?" in the tone that is not actually a question about finding something. Simone was 14 and she already knew what this was. She had been 7 the first time a store employee followed her mother through a grocery store. She had been 11 the first time a classmate said something that sounded like a compliment and wasn't. She knew the shape of it. She held up the compass set. "I'm buying this. Do you have money for that?" She showed him the $47 in her hand. He did not leave. He repositioned, shifted from her left to the end of the aisle, and continued watching. Her mother arrived 2 minutes later. Claudette Hargrove was a high school principal. She was also a 5'4" woman with the particular walk of someone who decided long ago that she was not going to spend her life making herself smaller for other people's comfort. She looked at the security guard. He looked at her. He left. They bought the compass set. Simone held the receipt the entire walk to the car, not because she needed to, because holding it felt like holding evidence. In the car, her mother turned on the heat but did not start driving for a moment. "You're going to spend parts of your life," Claudette said, "in rooms where someone has already decided you don't belong. That's real, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't." She looked at Simone. "The question is what you do with that." Simone looked at the compass set in her lap. "I bought the compass." "You did." Her mother started the car. "Now learn to use it." She learned to use it. She was 23. Her first full year at the architecture firm in Philadelphia. She was one of 2 junior associates on a team tasked with a presentation to a commercial client. She and her colleague, a white man named Brett, who had 6 months less experience than she did, had worked on the proposal together. She had done the structural calculations. He had done the visual renderings. She presented first. She stood at the front of the conference room and walked the client through the load analysis, the redesign proposal, the safety margins. She knew it backwards and forwards because she had built it from the ground up. When she finished the client, a man in his 60s, blue suit, gold watch, looked at Brett. "Does this look right to you?" he asked him. Not to Simone. To Brett. Brett looked at Simone, then at the client, then back at the calculations on the screen. "Yes," Brett said. "She's correct. The structural analysis is sound." The client nodded, apparently satisfied, and moved on. After the meeting, Brett said to her in the hallway, "That was brilliant work. Genuinely." "I know," Simone said. She was not unkind when she said it. She was simply accurate. That night she opened her laptop and began drafting the business plan for a firm where she would not need someone else to confirm that she was correct. She was 29. A flight from Baltimore to Atlanta, a conference on sustainable urban design, her second time presenting at this particular event. Economy seat, which she had booked herself, standard. At the counter, the gate agent, young, friendly, seemingly genuine, offered her an upgrade. Complimentary. Miles had accumulated seat was available. It was hers if she wanted it. She boarded through the priority lane. She found her seat in the first-class cabin. She settled in. 8 minutes later, a flight attendant appeared at her row. "Ma'am, can I see your boarding pass?" She showed it. "And do you have your original economy boarding pass as well?" The one from the kiosk. She did not. It was a digital boarding pass. She had already dismissed the notification. "I just need to verify the upgrade was processed correctly." She waited. The flight attendant called a colleague. The colleague called a supervisor. The supervisor arrived, reviewed something on a tablet, confirmed the upgrade was entirely valid. No one apologized. No one explained what specific anomaly had required 3 staff members to verify what one scan should have confirmed. In the 47 minutes she spent in that seat waiting to depart, she watched 2 other first-class passengers board without having their credentials questioned once. She did not say anything. She did not record. She held it the way she had learned to hold things, with the specific internal containment of a person who knows that the reaction will cost more than the wound. In the rental car after the conference, she cried for 6 minutes. She was tired, not from the conference, which had gone well, not from the flight itself, but from the weight of every moment like this one. The ones that were almost nothing, almost explicable, almost coincidence, but added up over 36 years to a specific, undeniable, exhausting total. She made herself a promise in that rental car. Next time she would not look away. She would not make herself smaller. She would not spend the flight wondering whether she had somehow invited the scrutiny. She would hold the space she had earned with everything she had, and she would not apologize for it. She was going to hold the space. It did not make her small. None of it did. It made her precise. It made her patient. It made her someone who builds structures designed to outlast every storm, including this one. Officer Tate's shadow is across her row. The tarmac is visible through the window beside her. The pale October sky. Simone Hargrove, who held the receipt all the way to the car, who said, "I know," to Brett in a Philadelphia hallway, who cried in a rental car and made herself a promise. Looks up at Officer Tate with the same stillness she has maintained for the past 20 minutes. "Officer," she says quietly, "I've done nothing wrong." Officer Tate looks down at her with the expression of a man who has made this request hundreds of times and understands the available responses as a spectrum from compliance to resistance. He has already been told what he is walking into. "Ma'am, the flight crew has requested your removal. I need you to step off the aircraft." "I understand that." Simone's voice is level, not placating level. The distinction matters. She is not trying to soften him. She is speaking the way she speaks in a client meeting when there is a technical disagreement that needs to be resolved through fact rather than volume. "But I've done nothing that constitutes grounds for removal. I'm seated in my assigned seat. My bag is in the correct overhead bin. I haven't raised my voice or made contact with anyone. The crew's account is that you were non-compliant and created a hostile situation. The crew's account is inaccurate. Ma'am, I have an audio recording of the entire interaction from the point of escalation." She nods toward the phone on her tray table, the recording light still pulsing steady and red. "I can play it for you right now if that's helpful." Brenda, who has followed the officers down the aisle and is standing near row 2, speaks before Tate can respond. "That recording was made illegally. It is not relevant to this situation, and I am formally objecting to its use. That is not how recording law works in a public space." Simone does not look at Brenda. She continues addressing Officer Tate. "I was in a public area. I recorded my own interaction for my own safety. That's legal." Officer Rivera, standing just behind Tate, says nothing. He is looking at Simone with the careful neutrality of someone running a parallel assessment. His eyes move briefly to the recording phone on the tray table, then to Brenda, then back to Simone. He does not speak, but his right hand does not move toward his belt. Patricia Osei speaks from 3B. She does not shout. She does not perform. She speaks the way someone speaks in a board meeting when they want to be heard and not ignored. "Officer, my name is Patricia Osei. I have been seated in this row since before this passenger arrived. I have watched this entire interaction. This woman has not been hostile. She has not raised her voice. She refused to move a bag that was legally in her assigned bin. That is the entirety of it. From 4C Noah Garrett. I've been recording since the flight attendant first approached the passenger's overhead bin. I can show you the timestamp. There's nothing on it that matches what you were told about this passenger." Tate absorbs this. He is a professional, and he does not change his expression, but something in his posture recalibrates a degree of certainty that was present when he walked down the aisle, is slightly less present now. Not enough less. Not yet. "Ma'am." His voice drops to the register he uses for final instructions. The register that does not invite further discussion. Regardless of the specifics of the dispute, a senior crew member has requested your removal. Under Federal Aviation Authority, the captain has the final say on passenger removal, and the captain has authorized this. I'm asking you to stand up, retrieve your bag, and come with us. We can sort out the details at the gate. If I leave this plane, Simone says, and her voice is perfectly steady on every syllable, I will likely be moved to a later flight. My checked luggage will have departed. My medication is in that carry-on, and the reason I am being removed is not a safety issue. It is because I wouldn't give up my overhead bin space to accommodate a bag that didn't belong there. She pauses. I need you to understand that before you proceed. Tate looks at her for a long moment. Then, ma'am, I'm giving you a final lawful instruction. Stand up and exit the aircraft, or you will be placed under arrest for failure to comply with crew direction and interference with flight operations. That charge will go on your record. Simone hears them. She hears them the way she hears a structural load calculation come back with a number that is exactly what she feared clearly, without flinching with full understanding of what it means. Her record, her professional license, her firm's contracts, the Newark project, the 7 people on her team. She looks out the window. Rivera shifts his weight. It is a small movement. He steps slightly sideways, just enough that he is no longer standing directly behind Tate in a formation that reads as unified support. He repositions subtly to an angle that places him beside Tate rather than backing him. The geometry of it is slight. Simone notices it. Brenda does not. Officer Rivera has been doing this job for 6 years. In 6 years, he has learned to read rooms. He is reading this one. The passenger in 3A is calm. The passenger in 3A is recording. 2 additional passengers in this cabin are contradicting the crew member's account independently without appearing to coordinate. The crew member whom he glanced at in the galley before walking in here displayed a specific quality of urgency that he has seen before in situations where the crew member's version of events is the version that most benefits the crew member. He has not said this to Tate. He does not need to yet. He is waiting. Noah Garrett leans forward. Officer, with respect, I have the audio. The flight attendant said, people like you don't understand how this works to this passenger. Directly. I have that on tape. If she's being removed for not accepting that, I think you have a legal liability question here, not a removal order. Brenda. That is a complete fabrication. Patricia, it is not. I heard it from 3 feet away. Tate raises one hand. Not for silence, for clarity. Folks, this is not a courtroom. I cannot adjudicate disputes on an airplane. I have a crew request and I have an authorization from the captain. Those are the 2 things I'm operating on. He looks at Simone. His voice goes very quiet. Stand up. Please. Simone looks at the window one more time. The tarmac. The gray sky with its strip of pale blue at the horizon. She thinks about Deja taking a video call from a hospital bed. About Marcus deferring an offer because he believed her when she said, this is the one that matters. About the Newark contract in her carry-on. About her mother saying, build better rooms. She thinks about all of it. And then she reaches for her seatbelt buckle. Her fingers close around the release. She looks down at her hands. She exhales once long and quiet. Fine, she whispers. The word is barely audible, but the cabin hears it. Patricia Osei's expression tightens. Noah Garrett lowers his phone. A passenger in row 5 looks away because some things are too painful to watch directly. Brenda, standing in the aisle, does not hide the expression that moves across her face in the half-second that follows. It is small. She controls it quickly. But for one unguarded moment before she reassembles her professional composure, the satisfaction is visible. She has won. Then a sound, crisp, deliberate, the sound of a newspaper being folded in half. Everyone in the first-class cabin turns toward seat 1A. The silver-haired man has folded his Wall Street Journal precisely along its center crease. He sets it on the tray table with both hands. He uncrosses his legs. He removes his reading glasses and folds them into his breast pocket. He does not stand yet, but the cabin can feel that he is about to. Patricia Ose rises from 3B. She does not wait for the man in 1A. She does not wait for anyone. She stands up with the unhurried authority of a woman who has been in enough rooms where someone needed to speak first, and no one was doing it. Officer Tate. Her voice carries to every row with no effort at all. I want to be on the record. My name is Patricia Ose. I am seated in 3B. I have been in this seat since before this passenger arrived, and I have witnessed this entire interaction from approximately 3 feet away. Tate looks at her. He nods once, indicating he is listening. This passenger was blocked at the galley by the flight attendant before she could reach her seat. She was asked to move a bag that was legally stowed above her assigned seat to make room for another passenger's bag that clearly violated your size restrictions. A passenger who, I should note, was never pressured by this flight attendant at any point. She refused, which she had every right to do. At no point did she raise her voice. At no point did she make physical contact with anyone. Patricia pauses. The flight attendant leaned in close to her and said, and I am quoting exactly from what I heard. People like you don't understand how this works. I heard that phrase clearly. It was not ambiguous. She sits back down. She does it the way she stood up, without performance, without drama. From 4C, Noah Garrett speaks. I have 38 seconds of audio that includes that exact phrase time-stamped. The quality is clear. I can play it for you now. Tate looks at him. Play it, Rivera says. The first words he has spoken since entering the cabin. Tate glances at Rivera. Rivera's expression is neutral, but his tone carries a specificity that is not neutral. Brenda's voice cuts across the cabin before Noah can press play. That recording is completely out of context. You don't have everything that happened before. Before. What's Simone's voice? She has not stood up. Her hand has released the seatbelt buckle. She sits with her hands folded in her lap and looks at Brenda with a steadiness that has not shifted by a single degree in the past 30 minutes. Before I showed you my boarding pass, before I placed my bag in the bin above my seat, before I sat down, she pauses. One beat. What happened before that needs context. The cabin is completely silent. Officer Rivera turns fully toward Brenda. Not Tate Rivera. He looks at her the way a person looks at something they are reassessing. Brenda opens her mouth. She closes it. She opens it again. I followed procedure. I identified a potential security concern and I reported it. That is my job. Reporting a security concern, Rivera says evenly, is different from characterizing a passenger as intoxicated and emotionally unstable when she is sitting in her seat with her hands folded. He pauses. Not for effect. For accuracy. Those were the words used in the dispatch call. Intoxicated. Emotionally unstable. The cabin takes a collective breath. She was neither of those things when we arrived, Rivera continues. She is neither of those things now. I want to understand how those words ended up in the call. Brenda's chin lifts, her default position, her armor. But something underneath it, the absolute certainty that has carried her through 26 years of first-class cabins, is showing a crack, not a collapse, a crack. A passenger from row 5, the woman who spoke earlier, says from her seat, I heard it too. What she said to her. I heard people like you from here. Another passenger, the man from row 2, nods. Same, from seat 1. A voice. It is not loud. It is not raised. It has no urgency in it and no performance. It simply exists in the cabin with the absolute, undeniable presence of something that does not need to prove itself. Brenda. One word, her name. Every head turns. There is a moment between the time Simone's fingers close around the seatbelt buckle and the time she hears the newspaper fold that belongs entirely to her. No one sees it. She is looking at her hands. She is running the calculation that she has run in one form or another at dozens of decision points in her career. The calculation that begins with, "What does this cost me?" and ends with, "What does the other option cost me?" She is precise about numbers. She has always been precise about numbers. This is what she does. If she stands up and walks off this plane, she will spend the next several hours at a gate somewhere filing a complaint with an agent who may or may not take it seriously. She will get a later flight. She will arrive in Baltimore tonight instead of this afternoon. She will have to explain the delay to her team. She will have to decide in the next 24 hours whether to escalate this formally, a process that will take weeks, possibly months, and will require her to relive this morning in documents and phone calls and meetings where she is the subject rather than the architect. And Brenda Kowalski will finish this shift. She will do the return flight tomorrow. She will stand at the galley entrance of the next first-class cabin, and she will make the same assessment in under 2 seconds that she made about Simone this morning. Simone knows this math. She also knows the other math, the one that is harder to quantify but no less real, the one that involves Deja, who named her daughter after Simone's firm, her own small joke, her own form of belief. The one that involves Marcus, who would never say so, but has structured his entire professional ambition around the idea that Hargrove and Associates is going to be something that matters. The one that involves her mother, who called last night just to say, "I'm proud of you." Not good luck, not how did it go. Just, "I'm proud of you." The calculation should favor leaving. The numbers say leaving is safer. But something in her chest, not stubbornness, not pride. Something older and quieter than either of those things. The thing her mother installed in her in the front seat of a car with the heat running on a November Saturday refuses. If she leaves, the next woman sits down in this exact seat in 6 weeks. And the one after that. And Brenda stands at the galley entrance for 8 more years, with her chin elevated, and her burgundy lipstick perfect, and her certainty completely and utterly intact. And nobody will have seen it, and nobody will have recorded it, and nobody in Seat 1A will have folded his newspaper, because nobody in Seat 1A will have had a reason to. Simone has a reason. Her hand releases the seatbelt buckle. She folds both hands in her lap. She faces forward. She does not announce this decision. She does not explain it. She simply makes it the way she makes all the decisions that matter, quietly, completely, without looking for applause. Whatever comes next, she will face it still. She will not make herself small. Not today. Not again. Not in this seat, not in this blazer, not with the Newark blueprints in the bin above her head, and her mother's voice in her ear, and 36 years of receipts held all the way to the car. Not today. The newspaper folds. The sound of it is specific, deliberate, the crisp, clean fold of paper being made precise. Arthur Whitmore sets the Wall Street Journal on his tray table with both hands. He uncrosses his legs. He removes his reading glasses, folds them, tucks them into the breast pocket of his sweater. He unbuckles his seatbelt. He stands up. He does none of this quickly. He does none of it with any quality of urgency or performance. He simply moves from seated to standing in the aisle with the unhurried ease of a man who has never once needed to rush toward an outcome because he already knows what the outcome will be. He steps from 1A into the aisle. He is between Tate and Simone's row now, not blocking the officer but present, simply present in a way that changes the geometry of the entire space. Officers, that is all. One word. The particular frequency of it, unhurried, uninflected, carrying no anger and no urgency, and yet somehow entirely unavoidable, does something to the room. Tate turns. Rivera turns. Brenda, standing near row 2, turns. They see a man in his late 60s. Silver hair, plain navy sweater, reading glasses folded into his pocket. No visible insignia. No title printed on his chest. He looks like someone's quietly successful grandfather. He looks like someone who belongs exactly and unremarkably in first class and has never once had to prove it. Tate's first instinct passenger interfering. He squares his shoulders. "Sir, I need you to return to your seat. This is an official matter. 1 moment." 2 words, the same temperature as the first one. Tate actually stops speaking, and there is a half-second where he looks slightly puzzled by the fact that he has stopped. Whitmore reaches into the breast pocket of his sweater. He removes a card. Not a business card in a wallet, a standalone card, heavy, matte, black with a holographic Skybridge Airlines logo etched into its surface. He holds it out to Officer Tate with 2 fingers. Tate takes it. He turns it over. He reads it. His face does not change quickly, but his body does, the shoulder angle, the weight distribution, the posture of absolute authority that he carries like a second uniform. It reorganizes in degrees, settling into something more cautious and more careful. He reads it a second time. "My name is Arthur Whitmore." The voice is the same, unhurried quiet, completely certain. "I am the founder and majority owner of Skybridge Airlines. I have held that position for 31 years. This aircraft is owned by my company. The captain holds his position on behalf of my company, and the uniform that member of my crew is wearing, he does not point at Brenda. He simply directs his gaze in her direction briefly. The way you note a detail without making it the subject of conversation was issued by my company." He pauses. "I have been seated in seat 1A for the past 43 minutes. I boarded before general boarding, as is my habit when I fly commercial. I was here when Ms. Hargrove boarded. I was 4 feet away from her when she was blocked at the galley entrance. I was present for every subsequent exchange. The first-class cabin has stopped being an aircraft interior. It has become something else, the kind of space that forms when something irreversible is happening and everyone present understands it simultaneously. Brenda's face does something that faces rarely do in public. It changes in real time, visibly in stages. The confidence leaves first, then the certainty, then the color draining from the skin under the burgundy lipstick, until she is a pale, stunned version of the woman who walked down this aisle 11 minutes ago with absolute conviction that she had won. She opens her mouth. Nothing comes out. Whitmore continues addressing Tate. "Not Brenda. Tate. I can personally testify as the person in this cabin closest to the point of origin of this entire interaction that Ms. Hargrove has conducted herself with complete composure throughout. She stated her case clearly. She recorded the interaction for her own protection. She has not raised her voice at any point. She has not been aggressive." He pauses, allowing the next words their full weight. "What I witnessed was a member of my crew physically block a boarding passenger at the galley entrance, attempt to access that passenger's overhead bin without consent, tell her using words I heard clearly from seat 1A that people like you don't understand how this works, and then contact port authority with a description of the passenger as intoxicated and emotionally unstable. A description that is false on both counts and that I believe was deployed deliberately to trigger a removal that could not be justified on factual grounds." He pauses again. "Ms. Hargrove is not being removed from this aircraft. She will fly to Los Angeles in seat 3A, in which she has every legal and contractual right to be seated. If you require further verification of my identity and authority, I would ask you to call Skybridge's corporate operations line. The number is on the back of that card." Tate looks at Rivera. Rivera has been watching Whitmore with the expression of someone whose calculations have just been confirmed rather than overturned. He gives Tate a very slight, very clear nod. Tate hands the card back to Whitmore. He does it carefully with both hands. "Mr. Whitmore," he says, and his voice has reorganized entirely. The authority register has been replaced by something more careful and more respectful. "I apologize for the situation. We responded to a Code 3 dispatch based on the information we received. Based on the information you received, you did your job." Whitmore accepts the card back and returns it to his pocket. He is not unkind to Tate. He is precise. The problem is not your response to the information. The problem is the information. That is not your error. It belongs elsewhere. He finally turns to Brenda. He looks at her. Directly, fully, with the specific quality of attention that only comes from someone who is not trying to impress or intimidate, who simply sees. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. When someone with 31 years of ownership looks at something they built and finds it broken, the weight of that look is its own instrument. Brenda, just her name. She has heard her name spoken by crew supervisors, by satisfied passengers, by her own family. She has never heard it sound like this. Sir. Her voice is unrecognizable. The register she used against Simone, the authority, the condescension, the smooth certainty is completely gone. What remains is smaller and more frightened. Please. I don't think you saw the beginning of it. She was not following direct. I was here for all of it. His voice is quiet, absolute, including the beginning. She tries once more. Her last try. 26 years, sir. I've given 26 years to this company. I was protecting the cabin. I was following my training. Your training, he says, does not include people like you. Those 4 words spoken quietly in a first-class cabin at 8:23 in the morning settle into the room like a sentence passed down. From every angle of the first-class cabin, no one makes a sound. Arthur Whitmore reaches into his other pocket and removes his phone. Plain device, no case. He dials. 1 ring. Greg. He doesn't introduce himself. He never needs to. He listens for approximately 4 seconds. Gate 14. Come to the aircraft. Now. He puts the phone away. He looks at Brenda one more time. In 31 years, he says, and his voice is quieter now, not softer quieter, which is different. I have terminated 3 employees on board an aircraft. I did not find satisfaction in any of those moments. A pause. His eyes do not leave her face. I will not find it in this one either. A beat. 1 full second. But I will find it less if I don't do it now. The jet bridge footsteps arrive in under 3 minutes. Greg Salinas is 44 Hispanic VP of JFK Hub Operations, and he moves through airport corridors with the specific speed of a man who received a text from Arthur Whitmore and has been breathing differently ever since. He is holding a clipboard. His badge is clipped. His hair, normally managed, has the slightly compressed look of a man who ran the last 100 meters. He steps into the first-class cabin and takes in the scene in approximately 2 seconds. Whitmore standing in the aisle. 2 Port Authority officers. Brenda Kowalski, pale and still, near row 2. A first-class cabin full of passengers who are not looking at their phones. And in seat 3, a woman in a dark navy blazer with her hands folded in her lap, watching. Greg has read the text Whitmore sent him from the plane. He also received 4 minutes before that a message from a junior crew member, Rosa Delgado, 14 months on the job gate, 14 Flight 318, flagging a potential issue with a crew-initiated Port Authority call that might not accurately reflect the situation in first class. He had the passenger manifest pulled before he left his desk. Mr. Whitmore. He comes to a stop. Composed, professional breathing, slightly harder than usual. I came directly. The passenger in seat 3, A. Whitmore, says. What does her booking show? Greg looks at his tablet. He already knows what it shows. He confirmed it 6 minutes ago. Simone Hargrove. Gold status member. Seat 3A confirmed. Highest available tier. No flags, no previous issues. Boarded during her designated priority zone. He pauses. Her booking is completely clean. And the crew's dispatch report. Greg looks at Brenda. He looks back at Whitmore. The language used in the Port Authority dispatch describes the passenger as intoxicated and emotionally unstable. Neither designation matches anything in the passenger record, and neither designation is consistent with the accounts I have received from ground contacts in the past 8 minutes. A quiet landed in the cabin like a final piece of evidence placed on a table. Tate's posture has completed its reorganization. Mr. Whitmore, I want to be clear that we acted on the dispatch as it was reported. Had we received accurate information? You acted correctly on what you were given, Whitmore says. The origin of the inaccurate information is the matter at hand, not your response to it. He looks at Officer Rivera. Rivera has been looking at Brenda for the past 30 seconds with an expression that is professionally neutral and personally very clear. "Ma'am," he says to Brenda, "you initiated a Code 3 emergency dispatch at a federal aviation facility. The language you used in that dispatch, intoxicated, emotionally unstable, triggered an armed police response. If that language was not accurate, it was..." Brenda begins. "It was not," Whitmore says. "Simply, the way you state a measurement." Rivera nods. "That's a separate matter we'll need to address." Brenda's mouth opens, closes. She looks around the cabin with the specific desperation of someone looking for an exit that is not there. In seat 3, a Simone has not spoken since Whitmore stood up. She has not moved. She sits with her hands folded and watches the scene in front of her with the expression of someone watching something they have not dared to believe was possible until right now, and who is being careful not to feel it too fully yet, in case it becomes something else. Whitmore turns toward her row. He meets her eyes for the first time since boarding. He gives her one small, deliberate nod. Simone looks at him. She nods back. That is all that passes between them. No words, no performance, just acknowledgement, the acknowledgement of two people who have both been in this room and now both know who the other one is. Greg Salinas enters something into his tablet. The booking confirmation is officially logged. The crew report is flagged for review. The timeline has been established. The machine has confirmed what the man already knew. Whitmore turns back to Brenda. He is not in a hurry. He never has been. He takes a breath, and when he speaks the way he has always spoken, when the situation is serious, without theater, without embellishment, with the particular weight of someone who has thought carefully about each word before releasing it. "You've been with Skybridge for 26 years, he begins. Brenda blinks. Something about the way he opens with this, the acknowledgement, the specificity is more disorienting to her than any accusation would have been. In that time, you've flown more than 4 million route miles. You've trained 43 junior crew members. You have over 200 commendations in your file. He pauses. "I know this because I reviewed your personnel record on the flight down from Toronto this morning." Brenda stares at him. She did not know he was reviewing her file. "I reviewed it because in the past 18 months we have received 7 formal complaints about interactions in this exact cabin configuration. 3 of those complaints came from solo female passengers of a very specific profile. All 7 complaints were administratively closed before a formal review was conducted." He lets that settle for a moment. "Your name appears in the closure notes on 4 of them. Those were closed, not investigated. Closed." His voice does not change temperature. "Those are different things." He goes on. He does not raise his voice. He does not accelerate. He states facts in the order they occurred, each one a closed door. She physically blocked a boarding passenger in the galley before that passenger had done anything except present a valid boarding pass. She demanded the passenger surrender overhead space that was legally hers in service of a passenger whose bag violated the posted size requirements, a passenger she did not pressure once. She told that passenger at close range in a cabin where multiple people heard the words clearly. "People like you don't understand how this works." She contacted Port Authority under a false report that characterized the passenger as intoxicated and emotionally unstable, neither of which was true, neither of which she had any factual basis for, both of which she knew would trigger an armed response. She continued this course of action after a member of her crew. A crew member 14 months into her first position provided accurate information that contradicted Brenda's account. At every point in this sequence, Whitmore says you had the option to stop, to recalibrate, to step back from the situation and respond to what was actually in front of you. He pauses. "You chose not to at every juncture. and at each one your choices became worse. Brenda's lip trembles, not dramatically, not with sobs or outbursts. A small, involuntary movement of the muscles around her mouth, the first visible sign that the structure holding her together is under load she did not plan for. "Sir." Her voice is stripped of everything now. The condescension is gone. The authority register is gone. The smooth customer service surface that she has been presenting to first-class cabins for 26 years is completely gone. What is left is a 54-year-old woman in a uniform that no longer fits the moment. 26 years. I have given 26 years to this company. I was protecting. Say the rest of that sentence carefully, Whitmore says. She stops. What were you protecting, Brenda? She cannot answer. Because the true answer, the answer that has been true every time she stood at a galley entrance and made a 2-second assessment based on something she would never put in writing, is not something she can say in this cabin in front of these witnesses with a recording phone on the tray table and 2 police officers 3 feet away. She cannot say it, so she says nothing. Whitmore looks at her for one long, final moment. Then he turns to Greg Salinas. Please initiate termination protocol, effective this moment. I want her credentials, her wings, and her company access badge. Greg steps forward. He takes out a physical form from his clipboard. He holds it toward Brenda along with a pen. Ms. Kowalski, your wings and your badge, please. Brenda looks at the form. She looks at the pen. She looks at the cabin around her, the passengers she has been performing for, the crew member in the rear galley, the 2 officers, the man she has worked for without ever being in the same room as for 26 years. She looks at Simone. Simone is looking out the window. Something breaks in Brenda then. Not grief, she is past grief. Not shame, she is past that too, or will be later when there is privacy for it. What breaks is the last of the certainty. The absolute, lifelong, unexamined certainty that she was right, that she is always right in these situations, that the instincts she has been acting on for 26 years are professional instincts rather than personal ones. It shatters quietly. No one hears it except her. She reaches up to her lapel. Her fingers close around the sky bridge wings, the pin she has worn every working day for 26 years, the pin she polished last night as she always does, the pin that represents the only professional identity she has ever had. She yanks it free, hard enough that a thread pulls from the fabric of her uniform. She holds it for a half-second, looking at it, this small winged thing, this small metal proof that she mattered, and then she throws it onto the carpeted aisle floor. It lands with a tiny sound. Almost nothing. She unclips her ID badge from her jacket. She does not hand it to Greg. She shoves it into his chest hard enough that he takes a step backward. 26 years, she says. Her voice is cracked and hot. You're throwing away 26 years. I'm upholding a standard. Whitmore says that this company should have enforced 11 months ago. When the first complaint came in, the silence that follows is total. Brenda looks around the cabin one more time. This time, she is looking for a sympathetic face. She has looked for this at every difficult moment in her career and found it. The colleague who backed her up, the captain who trusted her report, the supervisor who closed the complaint, the pattern that absorbed her certainty and validated it and sent her back to the galley with her chin up. She finds no sympathetic face. Rosa Delgado at the rear galley entrance is looking at the floor. The passengers are looking at Brenda with the careful, grieving expression of people who have watched someone dismantle themselves. Officer Rivera is watching her with a professional neutrality that she knows somehow conceals a verdict already reached. Officer Tate has stepped back. Greg Whitmore says, "Please arrange for a replacement purser and prepare the incident documentation. I want this aircraft to depart on schedule." Greg nods and begins typing on his tablet. Brenda stands in the aisle, stripped of her wings, stripped of her badge, stripped of the certainty that has been the load-bearing structure of her professional life for longer than some of the passengers in this cabin have been alive. She is wearing a uniform that no longer belongs to her. She is standing in a space she no longer has authority over. She has finally run out of moves. Officer Tate steps forward. His voice is back in its professional register, not hostile, not triumphant, simply the voice of procedure. Ms. Kowalski, before you leave the aircraft, we have a separate matter to address. Brenda, still vibrating with the aftermath of the firing, looks at him. I'm terminated. I'm done here. I'm leaving. You're not leaving unaccompanied. She looks at him. Then at Rivera, who has positioned himself not dramatically, just efficiently near the galley exit. He is not blocking it. He is simply present at it in a way that makes it clear the exit is not currently available on a self-directed basis. Tate explains it plainly. Initiating a Code 3 emergency dispatch at a federal aviation facility under false pretenses is a misdemeanor offense. It ties up armed law enforcement resources, it disrupts federal aviation operations, and it constitutes the intentional filing of a false report. They need her to accompany them to the terminal precinct for processing and questioning. You cannot be serious. Her voice goes up. The control she has been applying to it, the last of the professional register, begins to unravel. I was just terminated. You're going to arrest me on top of that. We're taking you in for questioning, Tate says. Whether it becomes an arrest depends on the interview. She reaches for Rivera's arm, not aggressively but definitively with the intention of moving past him. Rivera's voice is quiet and very clear. Ma'am, don't. She doesn't stop. Rivera steps in. It happens quickly and professionally, not violently, not dramatically, but completely. In under 10 seconds, Brenda's wrists are behind her back. The cuffs are on the ratchet clicks with a sound that carries through the silent first-class cabin in a way that makes two passengers look away. She is crying now, fully loudly with the specific quality of someone who has not cried in front of others in a very long time, and now cannot stop. Her hair, the immovable bun that she assembled this morning as she has assembled it every working morning for 26 years, has come loose on one side. Her lapel is bare where the wings were. The burgundy lipstick is slightly smeared at the corner of her mouth. She is being guided toward the cabin door, past the rows, past Patricia Osei, who does not look at her, past Noah Garrett, who lowers his phone for the first time since the interaction began, past row 2, row 1, past the seat she has stood beside the entrance of for 800 flights. Simone does not watch her leave. She is looking at the window. The tarmac is bright under the October morning light. The strip of pale blue sky at the horizon has widened since she first noticed it. The ground crew is completing pre-departure checks around the nose of the aircraft. She hears the sounds behind her, the footsteps, the crying, the particular mechanical sound of the jet bridge door. Then nothing. It is over. She is still in seat 3A. Her bag is still in the bin above her. Her hands are still folded. From somewhere behind her, row 4, row 5, one person begins to applaud. Slowly. Then another joins. Then another. Not wild. Not a standing ovation. The deliberate measured applause of a cabin that has witnessed something and needs to mark it with more than silence. It builds for approximately 8 seconds. Then it stops, naturally, the way things stop when they have said what they needed to say. Simone presses her forehead briefly to the cool surface of the window. It's over, she whispers. To no one, to herself, to the 14-year-old girl who held the receipt all the way to the car, to the 23-year-old who heard a client ask Brett whether the calculations were correct, to the 29-year-old who cried in a rental car and made herself a promise. It's over. And the seat is still hers, and the bag is still in the bin, and she is still here. The flight deck door opens with its specific click and swing. Captain Douglas Farrell steps out into the forward area, and his face goes through 4 expressions in approximately 3 seconds, professionally neutral, then scanning for his senior purser, then registering the absence of his senior purser, then registering Arthur Whitmore standing in the aisle. He comes to attention. Not military crisp, but the close civilian equivalent, the posture of a man who understands exactly who he is looking at and what that understanding costs him in this moment. "Mr. Whitmore, sir? I had no idea you were aboard today." "I know," Whitmore says. He lets 2 seconds of quiet establish the weight of that before continuing. "Captain Farrell, a member of your senior crew called the flight deck approximately 22 minutes ago and told you that you had a hostile, non-compliant passenger in first class. She asked you to authorize port authority contact. You locked the flight deck and authorized the call without leaving your seat or verifying her account in any way." Farrell's jaw sets. He is not a weak man, and he does not make excuses. "That's correct, sir. I received a crew report." "You received one crew member's version of events. You acted on it without confirming it. The result was that 2 armed officers boarded this aircraft and gave a lawful order to remove a passenger who had committed no violation of any kind." Whitmore pauses. She had her hand on her seatbelt buckle, Captain. She was about to comply. Because that is who she is, someone who follows the rules even when the rules are being used against her. Farrell looks toward row 3. His eyes find Simone in her seat, the dark navy blazer, the natural hair, the folded hands, the particular quality of stillness that is held all morning. He looks at her the way you look at something when you realize you almost did irreversible damage to it, and the irreversible was only avoided by something outside your control. "You have a duty," Whitmore says, "to verify before you authorize, not because it is always possible, but because when a human being's freedom is the outcome of what you authorize, it must be." "Yes, sir." Farrell's voice is quiet and genuinely ashamed. He does not reach for a defense. "I failed to do that. I trusted the report without verifying. That's on me." "Yes." Whitmore nods once. "You'll fly this aircraft to Los Angeles and you'll do your job. But before this plane pushes back, you are going to go to row 3 and apologize to Ms. Hargrove directly. Not through the intercom. In person." Farrell nods. He straightens his uniform jacket. He walks down the aisle. He is a large man, and the space beside 3A feels somehow small when he stops in it. He waits until Simone turns from the window. She looks up at him with an expression that is not soft and is not hard. It is simply steady. "Ms. Hargrove." He takes a breath. "I authorized a call I should have verified first. I trusted a report that I should have questioned. You were nearly removed from this aircraft for no valid reason, and the responsibility for that is mine." He holds her gaze. "I am genuinely sorry. It will not happen again." Simone looks at him for a long moment, long enough to be honest rather than polite. "Thank you, Captain," she says. "Then I just want to go home." "Yes, ma'am." He means it in every way the words can mean anything. He returns to the flight deck. The door closes behind him with its specific, definitive click. Whitmore walks to the rear of the first-class cabin. He does not rush. He passes rows 1, 2, 3. He stops at the entry to the rear galley. Rosa Delgado is standing exactly where she has been standing for the past several minutes at the galley entry, hands clasped in front of her with the expression of someone waiting to find out whether the right decision was the wrong decision. Whitmore stops in front of her. "You sent a message to ground services," he says. It is not a question. Rosa straightens slightly. "Yes, sir." I heard the flight deck call. I heard the words she used, intoxicated, emotionally unstable. I looked at the passenger in 3A. She pauses. That description was not accurate. It didn't match what I was looking at. So I reported what I was actually looking at. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. She blinks. I wasn't sure it was my place. It is always your place, he says, to tell the truth when you are a witness to it. That is not above your pay grade. It is not above anyone's. He pauses. How long have you been with us? 14 months, sir. He reaches for his phone and makes a note. He does it visibly deliberately so that she can see that she is the note being made. You have better judgment than people who have been in this uniform for 2.5 decades. He looks at Greg Salinas. Flag Ms. Delgado's file. Senior crew evaluation expedited. I want it on my desk before the end of the month. Greg makes the note. Yes, sir. She stays at this base, Whitmore adds. Unless she requests otherwise. Rosa is quiet for a moment. She does not cry. She is not the kind of person who cries when she receives something she earned. She is the kind of person who notes it, files it somewhere internal, and gets back to work. Thank you, sir, she says. Whitmore nods. He turns back toward the front of the cabin. Rosa looks down the aisle toward row 3. Simone is already looking back. Their eyes meet across the length of the first-class cabin, the woman in the navy blazer who held the space and the woman in the crew uniform who told the truth when it mattered. Simone gives her one small, deliberate nod. Rosa nods back. 2 women on the same aircraft. One of them just lost everything she spent 26 years building. The other one just found her footing in 14 months. The difference between them in the end was not the uniform or the years or the authority. It was a single, quiet decision to say what was actually true. Diane Holloway arrives from the terminal with the organized energy of someone who has been fully briefed and is ready to work. She is 39, warm in the way that is real rather than practiced, the warmth of someone who genuinely finds the job of making people comfortable to be meaningful rather than performative. She moves through the first-class cabin with a calm efficiency that signals without announcing that the previous atmosphere is over. Pre-departure procedures resume. Bins are checked. Drinks are offered. The aircraft begins its subtle internal reorganization toward departure. Whitmore walks back toward row 3. He stops at the aisle seat 3B empty since Patricia Osei moved to give Simone space in the aftermath. May I please, Simone says. He sits. Not across from her, beside her at normal conversational distance. He does not open a briefcase or pull out a tablet. He simply sits, and then he asks, "How are you doing?" She considers the question. She does not answer it quickly because he asked it genuinely, and it deserves a genuine answer. "I almost left," she says. "I had my hand on the buckle." "I know, I saw." She looks at him. "Why didn't you say something earlier, before the officers boarded?" He is quiet for a moment, considering how to be accurate. "Because you were handling it. And because I needed there to be no ambiguity about what happened in this cabin. If I had stepped in before the Port Authority arrived, the account could have been shaped as an intervention, a curtailment, someone with authority ending a dispute." He pauses. "I needed it to be visible. All of it. The words she used, the call she made the officers at your row. I needed every person in this cabin to have seen the complete sequence before I said anything." Simone absorbs this. "You let it get worse on purpose. I let it be what it was going to be. So that there was no version of this that could be called a misunderstanding." She is quiet, looking at her hands. Then, "The woman who just left, she did this for 26 years. What made today different?" He considers the question with the honesty it deserves. "I was in the room." The words settle between them. Simone looks at him. "That's the problem, isn't it? Somebody has to be in the room." "Yes." He pauses. "Which is why I still take commercial flights. When I fly my own aircraft, I see the airline I designed. When I sit where my customers sit, I see the airline they experience." He looks at the rows around them, the other passengers, the quiet cabin, the orchid in the galley vase. Those are not always the same airline. The intercom activates. Diane Holloway's voice is warm and direct. "Ladies and gentlemen, Skybridge Airlines Flight 318 has been cleared for pushback. We sincerely thank you for your patience this morning. We'll be wheels up shortly, and we will do everything we can to make the rest of your flight exceptional." The aircraft begins to move. Slow, deliberate, the particular quality of a plane that has been held in place, finally given permission to go. Simone turns to the window. The terminal slides past. The jet bridge. Gate 14. The space where this morning happened. She watches it until it is gone. She does not give a speech. She does not address the cabin or offer a statement or perform closure for anyone watching. She simply faces forward, folds her hands in her lap, and closes her eyes. That is her statement. Stillness, endurance. The decision made quietly and without audience to simply continue. From 4C, Noah Garrett lowers his phone for the first time since boarding. He looks at Simone, eyes closed, hands folded the tarmac moving past behind her, and he sits with that image for a long moment before he thinks about what he is going to say when he posts what he has recorded. He has never been less sure of his caption, and he has never been more sure that what he witnessed mattered. Brenda Kowalski is processed at the JFK Port Authority precinct within the hour. Her fingerprints are taken. Her photograph is taken. She sits on a metal bench in a holding area in a uniform that no longer has wings on the lapel, and she makes one phone call to her husband Gary, and the call does not go the way she expects. He tells her the video is on every news channel. He tells her their house phone has not stopped ringing. He tells her there are 2 news vans parked outside their home and that his employer has already called him asking for an explanation. He tells her with a flatness in his voice that is worse than anger that he is not coming. The union calls her back not to help, but to tell her they have watched the footage and are withdrawing representation. Her pension is frozen pending the outcome of the misdemeanor hearing on the false emergency dispatch charge. By the time she's released on her own recognizance that afternoon, there is no version of the life she woke up to this morning still intact. Not the job. Not the title. Not the certainty that carried her through 26 years of first-class cabins with her chin elevated and her wings shining. She does not fly again. Not for Skybridge. Not for anyone. Flight 318 lands at LAX 41 minutes late. The delay entirely Brenda's doing, and when the wheels touch the runway, the first-class cabin fills with a second quieter round of applause. Not for the landing. For the woman in 3A who does not look up from the window until it is completely still. Simone's phone produces, in the first moments of airplane mode, being lifted a volume of notifications that would have overwhelmed her on any other morning. Her business partner has texted 11 times. The Newark project director has texted once, and the message says grace under pressure is exactly what we are building this center to celebrate. We are honored to have you leading it. Noah Garrett's footage uploaded from the terminal before the doors closed has reached 2 million views before she deplanes. She does not watch it. She does not need to. She retrieves her carry-on from the overhead bin, the one she fought for, the one that stayed, and walks off the aircraft with her head up and her blazer straight, and when she steps into the Los Angeles sunlight, she stands still for a moment and breathes it in, and lets the morning, all of it, finally settle. Somewhere it can be carried without cost. 3 weeks later, she is in her Baltimore office, the new one, the one with the 9 desks and the window that faces the street, and she signs the lease renewal for a second floor. She does not make a speech about Flight 318. She orders lunch for the team, and they eat at their desks and work on the Newark plans. And no one needs to say what they are all quietly aware of, that the woman at the desk by the window built something that held even on a morning when everything tried to take it from her. Arthur Whitmore implements one new policy across Skybridge Airlines in the weeks that follow. Not a press release. Not a rebrand. One policy mandatory crew witness reporting requiring any crew member who observes an unfair interaction to report it through a direct channel that bypasses local management and goes straight to ethics compliance. The policy has no name attached to it publicly. Internally, the people who know how it came to be know. Rosa Delgado knows she is now a senior cabin services trainer at JFK, running the first cohort of new crew through an updated onboarding that includes prominently a module on what it means to tell the truth when you are a witness to something. And somewhere on some flight on some morning, a woman boards a first-class cabin she has earned. She is tired. She has fought hard for a long time. She carries something important in her bag. She walks past the galley without being stopped. She sits down. Nobody asks her to move her bag. Nobody questions her boarding pass twice. Nobody makes a 2-second decision about who she is before she has said a word. She does not know how close it once came to being different on a different flight for a different woman who decided to hold the space. She does not need to know. The space is simply there. Open. Hers. That is the whole point. That is what it looks like when someone who held their ground finally gets to rest. If this story stayed with you, please take a second right now to like this video. It takes one tap and it helps more people find stories like this one. Share it with someone who needs to hear it because someone in your life is carrying a morning just like Simone's, and they need to know that holding your ground is always worth it. And if you want more stories about dignity, justice, and the people who refuse to be erased, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you never miss one. We tell these stories because they matter, because you matter. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. It means everything.